Big story that was happening in Parliament yesterday, Mdu.
Yes,
what was this in terms of KEMSA?
All right, so the acting CEO of KEMSA was brought before the National Assembly's Health Committee yesterday in the name of Dr. Andrew Mulua. He's acting in that capacity, but then from the conversation which he had, which from all indications, he was being extremely open about in terms of what happened. I'm just going to give you a rundown of that story and say what happened, all right? He admitted that he changed the specifications for the botched 3.7 billion shilling mosquito net tender. So he appeared before the Senate Health Committee yesterday. He told MPs that at the time the specifications were changed, he was a director responsible for malaria at the Ministry of Health. So it's not like it was brought a fish out of water. He was within the system already, which we know. He said after the advertisement for the tender went out, the head of the Division of National Malaria Program, whose name he did not give during this session, raised concern that the advert did not have the correct specifications. Now, in the advert, he then said that he told him to do a memo to himself on the same. He did a memo, and somehow the memo did not get to his office, but was acted upon by the Principal Secretary, Dr. Josephine Boro, at the time.
Okay, so head of malaria does memo. Head of malaria comes to Dr. Mulua at an event, tells him, hey, by the way,
I've seen something's wrong with
the
this
malaria,
ad.
There's an issue. Oh, you think there's an issue? Okay, what's the issue? This and the other. Why don't you do a memo? Just put it in writing so that then action can be taken. So he does the memo.
Somehow does not get back to him.
So memo goes to PS's office.
Direct.
Okay.
Now, let me give you the details of what was here. And that's how the tender was changed, essentially.
Okay.
What they're calling the PBO was not part of the original tender, which led the Global Fund to reject the deal. And what we know is that according to the agreements, pre-agreed conditions was that it had to be complete. Now, when the Global Fund saw this is why they said it did not meet the mark and there was something wrong with the tender, and all these other stories started coming out as a result of that. In the initial tender advertised by KEMSA on the 31st of January this year as an international open tender with a bid deadline of February 23rd, it was later extended to March 10th. There were no specifications. The extension, according to the Health Cabinet Secretary Susan Nakumicha, who also appeared before the committee, came upon receipt of communication from Dr. Mboro directly. Then State Department of Public Health and Professional Standards Principal Secretary. Dr. Mboro is said to have instructed that the PBO be included and the timeline extended to March 2023, which according to them did not meet the pre-agreed standards from Kenya and the Global Fund. Upon receipt of the communication, the then CEO, Terry Ramadhani, sought advice on the new specifications. KEMSA wrote to the Global Fund to seek their concurrence. The organization later communicated asking KEMSA not to modify the tender specification and only, procure standard net as had been advertised earlier. The tender closed where there were no changes to the tender documents. Okay? Now, since they were close to the end of the tender, since they were about to close the tender, essentially, members of the tender committee were appointed by the PS, Dr. Mburo, on the 8th of March. Remember now, the time has been extended to when? The 23rd. This was the opening and evaluation of the tender. From the committee proceedings, it emerged that Dr. Mburo...
the tender are appointed by Dr. Mburo?
Yes.
Okay.
So now, during these committee proceedings yesterday, it emerged that Dr. Mburo acted upon receipt of communication from the head of malaria division and was instructed by Dr. Mulua to do a memo to be acted upon. Now, when he was asked if he was saying that the advice from the PS to request for the amendment of the tender came from his office, he said that yes, essentially it did. Because if you had seen that there was a discrepancy with this tender, all I said is do a memo so that in the future it will show that there was something to show that there was a mistake and that we tried to do what
there's
we could
documentation
to rectify
it. This anomaly.
Exactly. Which is what he explained yesterday. He said, yes, I asked him to do a memo if he was convinced that there was something missing. The memo was sent to the PS, who acted upon it at the program level. We did not have a contract between KEMSA and the Global Fund and the National Treasury, so we did not know what specification they had agreed upon. He said while giving the specifications, they had given 3 options: blue, green, or white. And in terms of insecticides, they had suggested that either PBO or pyrethrins, with the Global Fund settling on pyrethrins. This is the insecticide used on the nets before they're now packaged. At the time, the head of the program...
Can I just pause it slightly?
Yes.
This is the insecticide used on...
the nets.
There was an issue with the insecticides because there was a discussion about the effectiveness of the insecticide. So are we saying this was the most effective insecticide, or saying this is the one they used?
So
this is the one
that was suggested.
That Global Fund had said we use this one.
Okay.
However, even in the story in the Standard today, the issue of PBO is an issue that had been discussed before, and what is this PBO in full?
I'll get it in a minute.
Nobody talks about what this PBO is in full in any of those stories.
They're just telling us PBO.
They're just saying PBO.
Well, we're supposed to figure out what it means, isn't
yes.
It's still the same.
Procurement of the mosquito nets, according to Dr. Mulo, was done by the malaria program under the Ministry of Health as part of the policy which highlighted specifications as per a document from 2016. The document from 2016 has one of the specifications being PBO. Specifications by KEMSA was rectangular in shape with white, green and blue in color. Global Fund settled on polyethylene nets as part of the specification. According to Mulo, apart from beyond Global Fund, there are other partners who support the malaria program in Kenya, and inclusion of PBO could allow them to easily procure the nets. So basically, he's saying, so we have a Global Fund funded program, but we also have other donors who also come and fund malaria programs in the country. Head of malaria program is looking at, so we are procuring nets. If we include PBO, it allows KEMSA to procure nets for all these other programs as well. Okay? This is what we've been doing since 2016. We have PBO. Head of malaria program writes a memo saying, we've been doing this as part of our policy and our programming. We have PBO. The PS writes to the CEO of KEMSA. CEO of KEMSA says, all right, I have written to seek concurrence with the Global Fund bosses. Global Fund bosses say, no.
We want pyrethrin.
Stick with this pyrethrin thing. So time is running out. They go back to... So this whole confusion is a back and forth.
Right. So the thing is, when the tender documents came, because of this specification that you're talking about, they realized that it did not include this
PBO.
Mysterious PBO. That is when head of malaria went to Dr. Mulo and said, wait, there's no PBO in this thing. This does not allow us to cast our nets, no pun intended, wide, right?
Yep.
So he wrote and it went directly to the PS. PS signed off on it and said, let's go ahead with this because the tender period is closing. Only for that to have happened, the Global Fund now came and said, hold on a minute, you've included PBO. That is not according to the standards that we agreed on.
Do not go with PBO.
Do not go with PBO. Stick with pyrethrins, which is what they had said. Which is why they now said, we are pulling out.
Can I just chime in? I've been doing a little research here and there.
Yes.
Yeah, this pyrethroid or PY is what is used. But PBO, otherwise known as piperonyl butoxide, PBO, it's used to enhance the potency.
Oh.
Yes.
So it doesn't, they can work together.
Yes. It's supposed to enhance the potency.
Okay.
Yes. When you, the components of these two when combined makes the nets far more effective for the purpose that they intended.
And for a longer period.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And this is something that the World Health Organization had said can work. Meaning, this discussion goes beyond what we're dealing with here.
Yeah.
It's a medical discussion that is even at the level of
WHO.
Yep, it is.
And it is something that has happened at the ministry and KEMSA for years before this particular tender of 2023.
Yes, and there are there's documentation and there is writing, there's publication of how these things were even used in a neighboring country called Tanzania. Okay?
So,
And this was tested over a 20-month period. So this is not something that is new. So this debate that we've been sucked into is a question of, because if you add some other ingredient, the likelihood is that the cost will also go up.
of course.
Okay, so we then raises the question, what really are we dealing with here? Because no one has said that if you add the PBO, something will
Go
go,
wrong.
It affects.
Yeah.
yes, adversely. It doesn't,
Adversely.
it doesn't say that.
No, I think that's exactly what we're looking at here. We're looking at a cost issue, that then the amount then per net would then rise, and it would be significant enough for somebody to sit
but
up and take notice.
it would offer better protection
But it's
Yes,
also more effective.
exactly. It's more
Yes.
effective. So the question is,
for a longer period.
so the question is, why the insistence for this PBO then not to be included? Why? Because that's what we're looking at right now.
Yeah.
Because there was the inclusion of PBO, that is why then the tender or the whole agreement was pulled.
I think it also goes beyond this, because you see the agreement between Global Fund was done at ministerial level. It's Global Fund plus National Treasury plus the Ministry of Health at that high level. Did they look and agree at specifications that also suit our policy? Because when that agreement is written and these are the specifications, so we are going to support you in a malaria program and this is what we are going to do, did the Ministry of Health actually look back and say, so no, this one, our policy is that this is what we use, so you come in and fit into our policy? Or are we adjusting to fit into your policy because you're donating?
Yeah, sure. I mean, look, it makes sense when you think about it. But unfortunately, we're doing this in retrospect. It would have been great to be a fly on the wall in that conversation and then see what exactly happened. Because one would often say that if we're having a conversation about assistance for a product that is going to help Kenya as a country, then surely there should be some inclusion in terms of what you know to be. The head of malaria is a doctor worth his salt.
Yeah, by the
He
time
knows
you're
what
becoming
he's
head
doing.
of
By the time he's coming
malaria,
here, he knows what he's doing. By the time he is saying, look here, we have a tender coming in for nets, right? And we know that this PBO will enhance the efficacy of these nets. We know that. We've practiced this thing. So I've noticed this is missing. Why can we not include it? But then beyond that, why was this not had? Because these standard requirements are an agreement between these two bodies, the Ministry of Health and the Global Fund. So when you were having this conversation and the people who are on the ground, the end user literally of this thing, who would actually then take it to market, as it were, comes to find out later that this thing that would enhance the efficacy is not included, he's going to ask a question. So we want to make it seem, and we may not have all the details, but we want to make it seem as though somebody had some underhanded deal here. But from what I'm understanding here, and Mulo is being very open, he's saying, yeah, because we felt that it was important to put in. But now what you're saying is that it did not meet the standards of the agreement that you had originally had.
it goes into, those questions that you ask yourself. So, number one, like City keeps asking, what exactly are we dealing with here? In this entire Global Fund scandal, what is the issue?
Who's upset?
Because there was a quick decision that was made that, no, in fact, we're not going to use you people again, you KEMSA. We're going to use another company, and we bring in another company, and we say that's the one that's going to procure the nets and supply the nets. All right, why? Because there was the issue of we want to change the specifications at this particular stage. Is it because there was one supplier that you felt was qualified, like you've heard before?
Did you have
felt
your
that
guy?
this supplier was qualified, but this supplier was locked out despite being qualified? What is, because you hear all these stories and everything just points to the public officers. And I think maybe we should also ask questions of the Global Fund and its management.
You cannot ask.
What exactly is going on
for
at Global
two
Fund as
people
well?
in an agreement, you cannot only ask questions about one side. You cannot, especially when something like this has gone on. Because behind this, you see the smoke screen? behind it is people who are actually doing their job. The head of malaria, for example, in the country, and I'm sure you can attest to that, is not some run-of-the-mill guy.
No.
These people know what they're doing.
No, you cannot be head of malaria if you do not,
know what you're doing. Yeah?
And you've been around the block a couple of times.
Exactly.
Yes.
So you can't ask questions of one on one side and then not ask on the other side because there's 3.7 billion shillings behind it. You can't. The question is also going to be asked, was there somebody that you preferred to get this tender beyond the person who actually did? And because of that is why you're pulling this? We have to be bold enough to ask the question.
Actually, the question has to be asked now and an answer sought, because whatever the Ministry of Health and KEMSA are being accused of, that same accusation could be leveled at global health.
Absolutely.
The exact same thing, because what makes us think that people who work within global health are incapable of pulling the stunts that are being alleged are being pulled by the Ministry of Health and KEMSA? What is it? You assume other people do not have preferred suppliers, or they don't have people whom they feel they should,
or their own people.
All these discussions that are taking place. There's documented publication that shows that when you add PBO to these protective nets, there is improved protection. There is evidence. It's not a debate. It's something that is factual.
I'll tell you something else that invited my angst just a little bit. Nyeri Town MP Duncan Mathenge said to Dr. Mulwa during the hearings yesterday, or rather the session yesterday, that he was responsible for the botched deal. It was your advice that made the Global Fund withdraw from the tender award. You are the one who advised that the memo be written. You are the one who made the government lose the contract. And today, Dr. Mulwa, you are the CEO of the organization that is responsible for the storage and distribution of nets.
Actually, that MP is holding this particular stick from the wrong end. Because when somebody writes a memo, that's someone who's leaving a paper trail. Why do you leave a paper trail?
For it to come and stick you in the back later?
Exactly.
Why?
This is a seasoned medical practitioner. This is not somebody who graduated from the university recently. Memo is to document what it is that you've been told, so that it's in the public domain. You can say, this is why we did this. There was an issue and this is what we felt we ought to do. Okay? But the assumption that Global Fund pulled this away from Kenya because there was of necessity a problem within KEMSA and the ministry, that's one side of the story. What if indeed there is a problem with the Global Fund or within Global Fund? What if there is a problem there?
Yeah, and maybe we're looking at the wrong side of whatever the scandal is said it's supposed to be.
Yes.
Honestly, because what really here is the problem? The fella noticed that there was an issue and said, let's raise this. And then you document it to say that we are actually raising it. So somebody was not happy.
If you're going to accuse someone, it goes beyond you saying this person is at fault. Just like he produced a memo, please produce the evidence that when laid at the feet of this person, it will be irrefutable evidence that this person indeed is at fault, as you say. But merely assuming that fault is ascertained by words when somebody is accused and someone else says they are at fault, that indeed by so uttering those words, this person is at fault, that's a fallacy.
It's a good thing that Parliament, both the National Assembly and the Senate, are taking up this matter. It's an issue. It's come to the public domain. So the public's watchdog, in the name of Parliament, comes and says, let's take up this matter. Let's summon the individual. Let them come and answer questions. That's all very, very good. The problem that we see with these parliamentary inquiries is that they actually deal so much with sideshows and drama and not
the actual
issue. We saw it with the COVID billionaires. They summoned people. It was all drama.
Man.
And
you're the one. Who are you? You come here and tell us.
Worthy of an award.
Can you go away? You're not the owner of this company. Can you go and bring the owner of the company? Oh, how did you get?
I was walking by.
All those things. Huh? And in the end, the report that comes out actually does not have the substance.
Was that even a report?
It's all drama. The managed equipment scheme, also investigation by the Senate, same. All drama. We don't see them going far. This one, as you can see, is heading in that same direction. When MPs are spending time saying, so you're the one who made this, you're the one who made us lose the deal. You're the one, you're the one. This is Kenya. And the people who are being quoted here as having spoken are people who, semi-member of parliament, Dr. James Nyikal. This man has been PS, has been director of medical services, has worked in the ministry for long. He demanded an explanation on what caused Mulwa to change the specifications. We live in a country where people doing their jobs are affected by interests. Nobody wants to cry and die for this country.
You know, James Nyikal,
he is the one that I'd expect to actually be guiding that committee and showing
because
them.
he knows how it works.
This is how we actually frame our questions.
He does.
So we get to the root of this matter.
Yes.
So we identify this is what the issue would be. Now, when he joins the bandwagon and says, "Oh, so you're the one who affected these specifications," there are people who are just occupied by interest. You know, you've not given substance to this statement.
No,
but you know what?
Yes.
That thing that you said, this lack of desire to get to the root of the matter.
Yeah.
Because you know what? Getting to the root of the matter will expose other things that very many folks will be uncomfortable with. And so we want to keep it here at surface level, just bubbling here on top. We want to be able to throw in a Dr. Mulwa here or throw in somebody else at KEMSA, give them the weight of the responsibility, when you know that if you took your fork and you dug a little bit deeper under the surface, you will get to the root of the matter, and there will be some people who are uncomfortable. And you don't have the girth to be able to come out and say, actually, this is the real problem, but you're making everybody look over here when the thing is slithering under the fence, going in the other direction.
You don't do, when you hear such things going on, because the gun seemed to be focused on Dr. Mulwa.
For now.
For now.
Yeah.
And then tomorrow it will be somebody else.
Yeah.
Actually,
It was Dr. Mburu.
Yes.
It went to Ramadhani.
Yes, it passed by Tum.
Passed by Tum.
Yes, touched the CS Kidogo, just whisked by. Now
It's on Mulwa
it's straight
today.
on Mulwa.
Next.
Yes, but the question I want to ask is, again, as you say, if we're dealing with the drama that we often see in these august houses, what are we being diverted from?
That's what I'm saying. The thing is slithering under the fence, and you guys are all looking here at the shiny thing.
Plus, it is being assumed that Mulwa is the wrong person to be acting CEO of KEMSA. So who do they want to be acting CEO of KEMSA, if indeed they do not want Mulwa?
I think differently. I think all this drama is because these parliamentary investigations are a cash cow for individual members. We've heard this being said before.
So it's a shakedown.
It's a shakedown. We've heard this being said before, right? So a scandal has happened. It falls
Thank
within
you
our committee.
very much.
Come,
Santa,
We are starting. We are going to
come,
investigate
baby,
this one.
come.
Summon everybody. All right. And then the people who are feeling, hey, this heat is too much, they are approached and told, uko na ngapi? So we divert attention. This has been said many times before. We are not saying it for the first time here. It has been said many times before, even by members of parliament.
Themselves.
By previous former members of parliament. They have said it. Is it likely that these are the same things that we're seeing? This health committee here, the health committee in the Senate, the energy committee here, energy committee in the Senate, transport committee here, transport committee in the Senate, education committee.
Budget appropriation committee.
It's all conducting a probe, but nothing.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.